So as I said, today we cover classes and how to build objects. So let's start with the standard opening lines. So we need IOStream for printing. And we also need the string because I will use string along char arrays. String. And because we will use a lot of classes from the standard namespace, I will also use the shortcut, the using namespace standard, because otherwise we will need to add the standard prefix to many of the classes that we will use today. One of your colleagues asked me earlier, so what's the idea of these classes? How we would use them in a software to build a software that will solve issues. And you'll get a pretty idea if you just follow the entire course till the end, because we are still at the beginning, let's say. So if you ignore the first weeks, which we use for recapitulation, we just dive into classes. So you will see the entire picture at the end of the semester. The project will actually help you see that faster, because in order to build the project, you need to understand on your own how to use those classes. But my answer is that right now, we are actually building, we are defining the foundations of a software which we will build in the end. And everything that we do now is defining the building blocks of that solution. And the building blocks are the classes. So a class is a model, okay? It's something which represents something from reality. And that's why it's called an abstract model. A class is an abstract model of the real thing. And for example, if we want to build an online shop, it doesn't matter if that will be a mobile application or a desktop application or a website. In the end, you'll have the same approach, because most technologies which are used today, maybe the exception is PHP, but is losing ground. They are all object oriented. So all the technologies will use this approach. So let's imagine we build an online shop. So the first thing that we do when we analyze the online shop is to define the models, which is what we actually do and learn to do right now during this course. So models are actually things or entities which will be used by the online shop. Let me give you an example. And this will be the class also which we will implement. So for example, if I want to split the online shop issue or the online shop story into multiple items or models, I will just analyze what an online shop means as a business. And now I realize that we need what? The main focus of an online shop is to sell products, right? So I will need here a class called product. And now that class, this model should encapsulate, should help us manage all the data which represents a product. For example, string name of the product, maybe a char asterisk, a description, okay, the price of that product, right? Price, or maybe also the quantity or stock. So let's say stock, available stock, okay, or existing stock, or just stock or quantity, whatever. Okay, maybe we can record previous number of sold items, who knows? So you see, this is a model. And this is the first thing you should do to analyze the business or the problem that you want to solve it by using that software that you want to develop, and define these entities. Now let's continue the story, but in the end we will come back to product and we will focus on product. What other entities can we see in an online shop? For example, we can see users, right? Because a user should connect either by a web app or a mobile app to that online shop in order to buy something and to manage his data. So a user is another model. And here a user will have what? A username, and maybe a password. And maybe you have different types of users. Some are admins, some are managers, accountants, maybe some users from the marketing department, which will be able to change or manage some sales or promotions, and some are common users. So again, you see, this could be a user. Now, how do you handle this kind of stuff, especially attributes which are limited to only a set of possible values? For example, the user type. So in order to manage the user type, remember, we can have admin, marketing person, we can have a manager, which is able to see, I don't know, including financial reports. And we have the normal user, which is the client, the final client, the end user, which will just connect to the website, see the products, buy something, and so on. So how do you manage that? And here you realize that the user type is a collection of possible values. So we can go for what? For an int type. So in this case, let's call this one numeric type. And in this way, we know that 1 is admin, 2 is manager, 3 is marketing, and 4 is client. Okay, so you see, when you have a numeric type, and you will make these associations. What's the issue with this? The issue is that you will forget from time to time what's 1, what's 2, what's 3, what's 4. And again, here, someone by mistake can set the type of this user to 6. What's 6? We don't have 6, so you need to validate. But nevertheless, let's say we can go for this type. Another approach will be to manage the type of the user by using a string. So let's say this is a string type. And here you actually say admin is admin, manager is manager. Okay, so we are using strings to manage the type. Marketing, okay, and let's say client. Now, you see, this solves the previous issue, because right now when you check the user type, you will actually see what's there, admin, manager, marketing. So it's easy to read the type. Okay, but the issue with strings is that anyone can pass you any value here, and different versions of that string can mean the same stuff. For example, someone can store here admin with caps, or someone can store here admin with a capital A, and so on. You see, all these three values, they all mean the same, admin. So it's quite much more difficult to validate a string type rather than a numeric type, because here you have multiple combinations of letters which generally can mean the same stuff. So when you have this kind of attributes, when you have this kind of variables which are limited to a finite set, obviously we would like to combine both approaches into one, because we like the 1, 2, 3, 4. It's easy to validate. And we also like admin, manager, marketing, client, because it's easy to read the code. It's easy to see admin, manager, okay, rather than 1, 2, 3. So remember that some of you use this kind of types last year, or maybe you use them in high school. And when you have this case, a variable takes values in a limited set of possible values, then you should use an enumeration. So here, and we will start using enumerations because we will encounter many cases like this. So here I will say my user type is actually in this collection of symbols. So I will have admin, I will have manager, I will have client, I will have marketing, and so on. Now, a quick reminder about enumerations. Remember that these are actually symbols, and they are associated with numbers. You see, if I hover the mouse over them, admin is actually 0, manager is 1, client will be 2. So they work in this way. The first one is by default 0, and the next one is the previous plus 1. Now you can change the values here easily by saying, hey, admin wants, I want to be 1. So at this point, admin is 1, manager is 2, client is 3. Or you can say, hey, I want the client to be, I don't know, 50. So in this case, manager is 2, admin is 1, and client is 50. Okay, so they follow this basic rule. You can set the value for that symbol, or that symbol will take the value of the previous one plus 1. Okay, so instead of using numeric types or string types, I can use the enum, which is much more efficient, let's say. Why? Because if I say, hey, the type, it's a user type. So enums are like defining new types. So here I'll say user type. At this moment, if someone wants to set the type for the user, needs to use either admin, manager, or client. They can't use anything else because they will get a compiler error, which is great. Okay. And when you read the code, you will see admin, manager, client. But when we print the values or we display them or we store them in a database, you will have 1, 2, and 50. So it's a combination of symbols that you see in your source code and numbers which are actually associated to those symbols. Okay, so for the product, I think we can also provide an enumeration in order to manage the discounts, okay, for that product. So let's define a discount enumeration, discount type, okay. And here I will have, for discount type, I will have, let's say none, no discount, which generally means 0, which is great. After that, let's go for a minimum discount, minimum. And for this one, let's provide 10%. After that, we can have an average discount. Okay, so we can have here an average discount of 15%. And we can have a Black Friday discount of 50%. Okay, so you see right now I have, yeah, without the percent. So right now I have these symbols. This is 0, this is 10 because I choose to set it to 10, 15, and 50. Okay, so now I have discount types. So here I can say this will be my discount. 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 Okay, so again, remember enumerations, we will use them. Now let's go back to the online shop. What other models can we use here? So I will have products, I will have users. What else? I will have a shopping cart. Okay, so this is where I store the items that the user wants to buy, shopping cart. And based on this one, I will compute the value of that order and so on. What else? When they will buy something, that's an order. Okay, so it's an order. So here I will store the value of the order, maybe the list of the product, the date of the order, and any other specifics. And you see, this is the first thing that you will do. You will actually try to identify things, items, or entities which are part of that problem that you want to solve by building a software. And this is actually modeling the software. So here you define these classes, which will define the models in your software. And based on that, we will start implementing functionality. For example, managing the shopping cart, managing the placing of an order action, and so on, which means buying or canceling the order and so on. User actions like registering for the website, changing the data, logging in, logging out, and so on and so on. So this is the first step. You need to define the models. And this means define classes. And the first thing that the class will do for us, you see, is to encapsulate all this data. Remember what we talked about, we covered 2 or 3 weeks ago at the course. Without classes or structures, you need to define multiple arrays to store all these attributes. But when you say class product, when you say product, an object, now that object will have all these attributes. So in order to manage the catalog, now we just need an array of products, and each product will have its own data, name, description, price. Okay. Now, later during this semester, you will see, we already started that, but maybe let's say it's not obvious. these products will also do stuff for us. Okay, they can compute stuff, some values for us. They can check some use cases and so on. So classes will provide us data and actions. Right now, we are just trying to clarify how to build, how to define these models and how to build product objects. Okay, we are in this phase. Okay, so here you see, this is the first step. And after that, using all these items and focusing on what the online shop will do, we will start actually seeing how that software takes shape. But now we are in this phase. We are just modeling this. And if you want to store this data in a database, this will be your tables. Okay, this will be your tables in a database, because you will have a table called users, a table called shopping carts, a table called orders, and so on. So this actually also gives you the description of what data you should store in that database. Okay, and everything starts with this phase when you model the software that you want to build. Okay, so this is the response to your colleague question. Okay, so we have the product. Now let's focus on the product. So let's try to get other data here, because today we'll focus on building a product using different constructors, and also going again through setters and getters, just to make sure that everybody got the idea of getter and setters. So get and set methods. So we have the stock price description name, we have discount. Now let's try to add also a Boolean. So let's say is available. But again here, I will specify this from now, and you will see this through this laboratory. This is actually redundant data. You see, I have an attribute here which will tell me if this product is available or not. But in order to determine if this product is available, this is related with available stock, right? Because if you have a 0 stock, it means it's not available. If you have a stock above 0, it means it's available. So these are redundant attributes. And generally, try to avoid them. And I will show you why today, okay? Because at some point, you will forget to update one of them when you update the other one, because they go hand in hand.
But
so
maybe they could describe different things, like available stock to describe the whole stock, and the Boolean is available to say if it's available in a specific shop.
that's a different story. Yeah, so that's a different story, because if I say here available stock, and this means through all my stores, and is available online, maybe some of the products can be sold only in the physical store, that's a different story. Yeah, so yeah, try to always go for attributes which they don't overlap, okay, because you will have redundancy. Now for today, just to help you and everybody else to understand why redundancy can be bad, and is always bad, but how that can generate a mistake in your solution, let's keep it in this way. Okay, so for today, let's accept the fact that we designed this class with an issue. Is available will always tell us if we have available stock. So you see they are redundant. But yeah, your idea, that's the thing that we need to pursue, to have attributes which will say different stuff. Okay, so for today, let's keep the mistake, okay, or let's keep this decision, even if it's not the good one. Okay, so available stock is available. Now let's add also a dynamic array of values, and let's suppose we, for to help our accountants, whatever, let's say we store a history of how many products we sold each month. Okay, so in this way you have a history of how many items you sold. You can do different analysis, for example, to see which are the best months, which are the worst months, and so on. So let's define this array here, and I will call it monthly sales. Okay, so or monthly sold items, which means we record each time we sell something at the end of the month here. So in January, we will know that we sold 10 items, in February 5, and so on. So we have a history of back orders regarding this product. And every time, remember, when you have an array of numbers, you need to manage also the number of months, or the number of elements here, monthly. Okay, so this will record how many items we sold in the previous months. Okay, and here is the number of previous month. So this is, let's say, the number of elements here. They go again hand in hand. Okay, so I have name, description, price, available stock, discount. This is the enumeration, is available, is redundant with this one. We will see what that will mean. And monthly sold items and number of months. Okay, so I think we covered almost any type that we will use. If you have any idea, you can say it. So if you like another, I don't know, specific attribute here, we can introduce it. But I think we cover most of the types. So you have a dynamic array of chars. We have a string.
I have a question. We are keeping the track of monthly sold items, but what if our shop is like 2-3 years old? We counted the months like second year, first month, 13th month, or do we need to set another variable for like years in which we?
Depends. We can have this like a continuous number. So we can reach, like you said, if our shop started 3 years ago, it means here we will have like 30 plus months.
Yes.
Okay. So at that point will be our job to determine if we want to see which were the items we sold 2 years ago in February. Now we need to provide a method which will go through this array and identify which is February 2 years ago. Okay. Yes. So at this point, we should also know which was the starting date. Okay. When we added this product in our catalog, because the starting date will be the first month. So yeah, you see, this is already, we talk about functionality, how we can use this data. Now, that's one approach, to have a continuous number of months. If you want to go for year by year, so you say, hey, each year we reset this counter and we start in January with an empty array, that will be another approach. And you save that previous data from the last year in the database and you don't keep it in memory. So you will focus only on the current year. That will be another approach. So you can have any number of solutions depending on what you want to do and how that will fit with the requirements of that software. So any solution will work if that will solve the problem. So yeah, for this one, just to simplify it, let's say this is the number of months since we introduced this product. Okay, so items sold each month since the beginning, since we opened the shop. We opened the shop or we added the product. Okay, in our products catalog. Okay, so yeah, it will be continuous. Okay. Other questions? If you would like to add here another attribute. Okay, so we go with these ones. So let's focus on product and let's cover the set, get methods and constructors, okay, which is the topic from last week course. In order to start compiling this source code, in order to be sure it's okay, let's define main, int main. Okay, build, rebuild. Okay, let me make sure that everything is okay. So everything is defined here properly. Now, let's dive into the product. So remember, every time we define a class, some things we get them for free. One thing is you get encapsulation, which means you get a default private here. Even if you don't write it, it's here. So you get this one, which means the entire class content is private, which means it's encapsulated. And this is the way we should keep this class, okay? Keep it encapsulated. So even if you don't write something here, you still get this private, which means everything is private. The other thing that we get for free, and this was the discussion from last week, is the default constructor. So remember, if you define a class, the compiler will give you the default constructor in order to allow you to use that class to build a product. So right now, I can create products. This could be a product. This could be another product. So let's say another product. Okay, so right now I can actually use the class by building products. What's the issue with the default constructor? Why I said last week that the default constructor should be, let's say, kept only for yourself, okay? Because it's dangerous, because other developers will try to use it, and this is the reason. It's very simple. You just say write this and you get the product. So it's very easy to use the default product. But the issue with the default product is that we'll allow others to create products with default values here. And remember, software should follow reality. Now, if you add a new product in your catalog for the online shop, okay, when you go to the accountant and say, hey, we just bought a stock of that product, let's add it in our stock and in our accounting books. They will say, okay, give me the name, give me the price, give me the quantity, okay, because I need to add that in our accounting books. So you see, in reality, you can't just add some products without a name, price, quantity, and other attributes. That should not happen. And this is the danger with default constructors, okay, because they will allow other developers to create products without values, and they will forget to initialize them. So you will have in memory, and maybe this will reach the database, a product without a name, without nothing. Now, in C++ and other languages, we have another issue with the default constructor because, for example, in Visual Studio, we know here we get 0xCCC, here we get 0xCCC, and so on and so on. So you see, depending on some compilers, we'll have an extra issue with that because you get those strange default values which are useless. Now, in order to solve this issue, the second issue with the default values, I showed you last week that when you define a class, you should also define your own default values. So in this way, your program will always use those values and you don't depend on a specific compiler. For example, those of you which are running this example on Linux, they will get here null and they will get here 0. And the rest of us which are running this on Visual Studio, we get 0xCCC. You see the difference? So when you define a class, in order to have full control over the default values that you will get always, no matter which compiler you are using, you need to define them here. And this was something we have seen last week. So what will be the default name? Empty string, or you can say no name or whatever. So I choose here to say empty string. This is not just an empty string, it has a \0, but it's a string with no printable characters. Now for description, I will say it's a pointer. So I will say, okay, when I don't have a description, I will mark this pointer to null because it's pointing to nothing. Price will be 0. Available stock will be 0. Discount, you see here, the enumerations, what I told you earlier. Using an enumeration, they can't write a number because the compiler error will say, no, you need to give me one of the symbols from here. So you don't actually need to validate with enumerations because the compiler will validate that for you. So the developers cannot pass any value which is outside of this collection of symbols. So in this way, I need none. And in order to write that, we will see this syntax through this semester. And maybe tomorrow I will introduce static variables, static attributes. So you will see this strange syntax specific to C++ with the 2 points, 2 points. Okay, and here I will say none. Okay, so 2 points, 2 points, none. Sorry, none. Okay, so now I will initialize the discount type to none, which means 0% discount. Now, is available, I will make it false. Now, the monthly sold items, I will make them, again, it's a pointer, null pointer, which means I don't have any historic data. And number of previous months, 0. Okay, so at least with this one, you solve this difference between compilers. So right now, this source code, it will run in the same way on Microsoft Visual Studio compiler or Linux compiler or any compiler, because now we choose which are our default values. Okay, so always do that. When you define the class, go also for the defaults and choose your own defaults, which you can use later. Now, the problem still remains with the default constructor, because again, now the developers, they will build products without a name, without a description, with a 0 price and a 0 available stock. So that's why I was saying that default constructors should be limited in many cases just for you. So remember, you get this for free. So when you define a class, you get a default constructor, which means the user has a default constructor, the shopping cart has a default constructor, the order has a default constructor. For example, if I want to create an order, I'll just say order. Okay, you see, and it will use the default constructor from here. Now, how do we change this? How do we change or remove the default constructor? How do we define it in a way so we will be the only ones to use it and the others will not be able to use it here? And for that, we need to define other constructors. Now, before defining other constructors, was the discussion 2 weeks ago, was that when you have multiple attributes like this, split this problem into multiple simpler problems. And by that, I mean, take each attribute and deal with it independently from the others. Because if you jump now to write the constructor, you need to deal with all these attributes in the same time. You need to validate in that constructor name, description, price, available stock, discount, okay, not discount, monthly sold items, and so on. And that constructor will be very large. You need to write a lot of source code there just to write that constructor. So in order to split that complex problem into multiple simpler problems that you can address independently, always start with the public interface before jumping to the constructor. Because in that way, you will see that the constructors will be much more easier to implement and to manage. Okay, so let's do that. Let's define the public interface of the class. And I told you that the public interface should allow others to read and maybe change change some values here. And remember, you have full control over these actions. You have full control to decide which attributes can be accessed from outside the class. You can decide how those attributes or which of them can be changed and how others can change them. So let's start with the read access. Okay, so for example, for name, we already know that. I will not insist on get methods. I just want to show you that get methods, they are not entirely related in a one-to-one relation, for example, with a single attribute. So you can define any get method. Now let's start with some easy ones. So for example, I want to define a get method for name. So get name. Okay, so here I'll say return. Remember this is the method, the address of the object which will call get name. So every time you define a method here, with the exception of static methods, an object is mandatory to call this get name, and this is that object address. So here is return this name. Okay, and we can do a get description. Remember, for get description, we covered that in detail. Don't return pointers. So let's say for get description, I don't want to allow access to the description. So let's write a get method for monthly sold items. Again, watch out when you return pointers, because if you return the address of an array, they can do whatever they want with that address. They can change your array. Okay, so always return a copy. So for example, if I want to return a copy to the my monthly sold items, get let's say monthly sold items, then don't do this. Okay, so let's say don't do this. Return this monthly sold items. Okay, so don't do this, because they will actually be able to change your array. They can actually delete this array. So don't do this. So let's create a copy. And in this way, we dealt also with description, if you go back to the course. So let's create a copy. So I will say just int asterisk data copy, whatever, equals new integer of this. And sometimes the IntelliSense is not helping me, it's not suggesting anything, but I know what I want to do, number of months. Okay. Now here, this can crash if this number of months will be 0. Why? Because you can't allocate 0 bytes. So here, we need to check before doing the copy if we can actually do the copy, or if we have something to copy in the first place. So remember, a product by default does not have a history. So by default, it will have 0 here and 0 here. So let's check this one. If this, you can check the number of months if it's 0, or you can check monthly sold items to see if it's null. So if this monthly sold items equals with null, which means number of months should be 0, or you can say here end. Now, if they are not null and 0 in the same time, it means you have an issue there. So that's why normally you should check only one of them. Number of months equals 0, because if this is different than null and this is 0, you see you have an issue. You have an array, but you don't know how many elements you have there, and vice versa. If this number of months is different than 0 and this pointer is null, you think you have some data, but the pointer is pointing to nothing, so it will crash. So normally, if this pointer is null, the other one should be 0. So that's why you should check only one of them. Okay, both it's an overhead. Okay, so if you don't have any previous data, then we just return null. So why do we need to create something that does not exist, right? So we just return null, and we will return null. Okay, now if this return is not executed, it means we have some data, so we can copy. So it means here you have at least 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. And now let's copy the data. So for int I at 0, maybe some of you used memcopy last year, or maybe for other examples, tutorials. You can use memcopy if you want to copy an array from another array. Now, without memcopy, this is the classic approach. And actually, memcopy is doing actually this. So this number of months, I++, and here I will say data copy at index I equals with this monthly sold items at index I. So you see, I created a new copy in heap. Okay, and I will return that copy to anyone who needs this data. Okay, because in that way I will give them a different array than mine, so they can do whatever they like with this pointer, with the data copy. I don't care. I still have my array here. Okay, so I will keep my array and I will return a copy. Return data copy. Okay, so again, watch out when you write a get method for a pointer attribute. Try not to return the pointer. okay, because you lose control over that address. Now, if you give me the monthly sold items, I think I will also need access here, because here you just give me the array. So how do I know how many values are there? So generally you need also to provide this get number of months. Okay, so here I'll say return this number of months. Okay, and in this way we return it. Now let's also provide the get method, for example, for stock. So I want to check what's my available stock, and if it's this product is still available. Remember, here we have a redundancy issue. You will see it in just one moment when we cover set methods. So let's say get stock. Okay, return this available stock. And remember, for bool types, for bool attributes, generally this doesn't sound too well, like get is available. Okay, it doesn't sound too well, available. So here you need to figure it out a name which will actually describe this attribute that you want to get. So instead of saying get is available, I can actually name this is available. So when I will check it, the source code will look much more prettier. Let's say it will be if product dot is available, instead of saying if product dot get is available. So for Boolean, try to use here is or has. Now we still have an attribute here which is available, but we can also use the same name also for a function. So you can have an attribute and the function with the same name. How the compiler will distinguish between them? It's easy. The functions will always have the brackets. When you call a function, you have the brackets, right? Now, if you are not feeling okay with this, if you feel that at some point you will make a confusion between them, I don't know, make something different here. For example, just write this with caps. So bool is available with capital I. So now you know this is the function and this is the attribute. Okay, so in this way I will name this one is available, and here I'll say return this is available. Okay, so in this way I define get methods for everything here. Now let's focus on set methods, because set methods will be important to us for implementing the constructor. And yeah, let's define also a method, because you see, when you have a lot of attributes and you have a lot of get methods for all those attributes, or at least for some of them, remember, it's not mandatory to provide get methods to all of them. Okay, it's quite difficult to print all the data of a product. Just imagine. So if we want to print all the data which describes a product here, we need here to write a lot of source lines, okay, to write a lot of code, which will actually call those get methods. And we need to copy paste that sequence every time we want to print another product. So in order to avoid this, and just to keep the get methods when for those use cases when you need to check only one attribute, for example, you have a list of products, you have an array of products, and you want to check which products are still available. So in that case, you go through the array and you call for each product is available. Okay, so get methods are useful when you want to go through multiple objects and actually check, or when you have a single object, doesn't matter, you want to check a particular attribute. But if you want to print all the data of a product, that will be quite, let's say, will require significant effort. So in order to avoid that, because we will print a lot of products today, let's also provide a method on this public interface which will help us do that. So void print info, and here I want to print the data, the entire data of my product. So we can check our products much more easier using print info rather than calling all those get methods here. So let's print the product. So I will use the same visual effect, let's say. So this will help me or you see the screen and see the difference between one product and another product. Especially when you print a lot of data at the console, this approach is quite, it's helpful. So let's print the name and line. So name, and let's say here this name. Okay. The description. Now, remember that by default, the description is null. So if you try to print a char array, which is managed by a null pointer, your program will crash because you can't print this array. Okay, it doesn't exist. So when you choose some default values here, don't forget those values and take them into account when you do something with those attributes. For example, here in print info, I can't directly print the description because it will crash. For example, it will crash for this product. Let me show you. So if I say here, cout end line description, and here I'll just say this description. If I will call this method here on product, okay, let's do a build rebuild. Just 1 second, sorry. Okay, sorry about that. So when I will call this, let's call it build, let's do another build. Okay, and now debug start without debugging. You see the program is running. I hope to see a pop-up. I didn't got that one, but still I have the strange exit code because of here we are trying to print a null pointer, which is the description. So, okay, the process crashed with this strange error code. So when you choose some default values, don't forget those values and take them into account when you try to do something with them. For example, here in print info, we know that by default description is null, so we can't actually print it directly. So always check it. So if this description is still null, which means if this is still null, so yeah, let's say we want to see if it's different than null. This is the purpose. So if the description is different than null, then we print it. Otherwise, we don't have to print anything. Or you can print a generic message like this one. Let's say else cout end line no available description. Okay, so always take those values into account. So this is the name, the description. Now let's print the price. Price. Okay, and cout. Let's print the stock. Available stock. Okay, for the is available again. For the discount type. So let's see the discount type. So cout, and remember an enumeration, it's a symbol associated with a number. So I can actually print the discount in terms of percent. So discount, and here I can have this discount and add the percent here as a symbol. So we will actually see 0%, 10%, 50%, 20%, whatever. Okay, so in this way we see the discount. What else do we have? We have the, if it's available, again, here is redundant. You see, you may say, yeah, but it will be obvious that if the product is available, because the stock will be 0 or different than 0. Yeah, this is the issue with redundant attributes. Okay, you say the same thing by 2 different attributes. So let's say end line, and here I will say I will also use the conditional operator. So the question is, if this is available, okay, question mark. If yes, it means is available. So I will print is available. Else, we can say something like, hey, it's not available now. You can, I don't know, schedule a pre-order. Okay. You can make a pre-order. Like when we will have it on back on the stock, we will reserve it to you, and you will have priority to buy it. You can make a pre-order. Okay. So in this way, we print also is available. Now let's print the historic data. So again, here, remember by default, we don't have historic data. So we don't have monthly sold items, it's null. So let's check this again. Here I will check only one attribute. So I will check either monthly sold items, or I will check number of months to be 0. So if this monthly sold items is different than null, it means we have some data. So now we can print it. Cout end line, and here will be something like previous sold items for int I at 0, I less than this number of months, I plus plus, and now you have the cout this monthly sold items at index I and the space here. Okay, so we will see the array data. Now, if we don't have previous data, we don't print anything. Okay, so we will do that. Okay, so now we have a way to print all the data of a product, and the get methods will be used for particular checks. So if you want to see only one attribute, or you want to check one attribute of a product, we can use the get methods. But if I want to see everything and avoid calling all those get methods, I can go for print info. So let's see print info on our product. So I have the call here, product print info. Let's build this and run it. Okay, debug start without debugging, and here it is. Okay, so I have no name because it's the empty string, no available description, price 0, stock 0, discount 0%, and you can make a pre-order because we don't have anything on the stock right now. Okay, and you don't see the monthly sold items because there are no previous data. There is no previous data. Okay, so we can easily check all our products. So this is the, let's say, the public interface for reading data. Okay.
Could you please show the print info for just a little, for one moment? Thank you.
Okay. Now, in the meantime, while your colleague is synchronizing with me, I can also do a short update. So let's say week 7 partial update, and you can check all these right now on GitHub. Okay, so if you go to GitHub, do a refresh, you will see this source CPP. So if you have, let's say, other methods which are missing from your example, you can copy the source code from there, and you can synchronize with me right now. So let's switch to set methods. And the reason I will write the set methods before the constructors is, like I said, is based on the fact that I will focus only on changing one attribute at a time. And after that, I will focus on providing different constructors with different combinations of input values. So in this way, I take this process step by step, okay, rather than starting writing the constructors and writing a lot of code there in order to validate, change all those attributes. So let's start with the set name, okay? So void set name. Now, normally here I will use the same name for the input variable as I use it for the attribute, okay? Because for me, it looks normal and I don't need to waste time by figuring out what will be the name for the input. So this could be confusing to you, or you can easily do mistakes by messing up which is the input value and which is the attribute. And that's why I always use the this here in order to, for me, it's very clear that this is the attribute of the object, and the one, the variable without this is actually the one that I get here. Now, if this is confusing to you and you want to be much, let's say, to be sure about which one is which, you can also go for this approach. For example, I will write this for price. Okay, you can use a different pattern for the input variables. For example, set price. Here you may say float new price, okay, or something like this, input price or whatever. So in that way, maybe it will be much more clear to you which one is which, okay, because they have different names. But in my case, you will see that by default, I choose the same variable name here because this is the way I, let's say this is the style that I have created for myself. So to recycle those variable names. Okay, but you can choose any name here if that will be an advantage for you. Remember, when we define set methods, we need to do something supplementary, not just take the value and set it there. We need to validate. So let's do that. So let's say here, if the name that we receive doesn't have at least, let's say, 2 characters. So if name length, remember it's an object, this one, so it has its own methods. So if name length less or equal than less than 2 characters, in that case, we don't print messages, we don't do nothing, we just tell the developer which was calling set name with a wrong name that is not okay to do that. So throw exception, and I will say wrong name, too short. So the idea is to make your colleagues, or make you, to validate their own data before they call set name. And this is the way we do it, because if they call set name with a name with only 1 letter, we will make the program crash. So they will realize they need to also validate when the user is inputting the product name. They should validate if that product name has at least 2 characters, because otherwise they need to tell to the user, hey, you need to give me at least 2 characters. And after that, to call set name on us. Okay. Again, remember that when you throw an exception, this is the equivalent of return. So this function is terminated instantly, okay? You don't reach this line here if you execute this one. For price, we will do the same stuff. So let's suppose here that it's not normal to set a 0 price, at least 1 RON. Your accountant will say this, hey, at least 1 RON. We can't give them for free, because we have a balance, a stock balance, so you can't actually make them free, give them for free. So let's check the price. So if new price is less or equal than 0, is not okay. Negative price or 0 price is not okay. So again, throw exception, price value not okay, or whatever. For any other value, we can change the price. For the description, let's cover the description. So void set description. Okay, and here I will get the const char, let's say description or new description. I will use this pattern today. So new description. Again, here we can validate, for example, the description should have at least 5 characters, let's say. So if string length this time, this is a classic char array, it's not an object. So if string length of new description is less than 5 characters, again, we throw an exception. We make the program crash. So description too short. Okay. If it's not the case, remember, we always create our own copy, and this will be the topic for tomorrow. Memory leaks, destructor, shallow copy versus deep copy, and copy constructor. So this will be the topics for tomorrow course. Okay, and now let's do a copy. So this description equals new char of string length of new description +1. And this is, you will understand tomorrow. I think at some point we mentioned what's memory leak, but tomorrow you'll understand why are bad and how to avoid them. But just for the record, we say here we are generating a memory leak. Okay, so just leave it for today. It will not crash our program, but it's still an issue. So tomorrow you'll understand why we generate a memory leak here and how we should write this. So next week we will write this properly. But for today, we will write it here with a mistake. So this description equals new char string length new description +1. And here I'll say string copy underscore s. Okay, save copy. And the destination is this description. The number of characters to be copied is this one. And the source is new description. Okay, so in this way, we have created our own copy. And again, let's write another, don't do this. And this is shallow copy. Again, we will have an entire course tomorrow on this. Don't do this. This description equals description, new description. Fortunately, and because of this const, fortunately, you can't. Now, if you remove the const, you can do this, and this will be a big mistake. Your program will crash. And again, tomorrow we have the entire day for this. Now, fortunately, using const char asterisk here, this will prevent you from writing this mistake. Okay, so just leave it again here. Okay, so this will be the set description. Okay, we create our different copy and we copy the value that we receive here from description. What else do we need to copy? So we have to change name, price, set description. Let's see. So name, description, price, available stock. And this is where the redundancy between is available and available stock will come back to us. So let's write the void set stock int new stock. Again, validate. So if new stock is less than 0 is not okay. We can reach 0, which means we solved everything. So 0, it's okay this time. Okay, but a negative value is not okay. So throw exception wrong value. negative stock. Okay. Now, if this is not the case, then I can say this available stock equals new stock. Okay. And now you see, if the new value is 0, it means now the product is not available anymore. If the value here it's different than 0, it means the product is now available. So this is the issue with redundancy. Every time you change one of the attributes, you need to change the other one. At some point, you will forget to do this. Okay, that's the issue with the redundancy. At some point, you will forget, and one of the attributes will say one thing, and the other will say a different thing. For example, we can reach a situation when available stock is 0, but the Boolean is available will be true. Okay, so you see you have this inconsistency. Which one do you want to believe? Or which one do you choose to believe? Is the is available or the stock? Because they point to different directions. So that's the issue with redundancy. You need to update the other variable or the other variables when you update one of them. So in this case, I will say this: if this available stock equals 0, so let's say we sold everything, then I need to update also is available equals false. Else, maybe it had been on false, and now we need to change it to is available to change it back to true. Okay, so that's the issue with redundancy. If you have an attribute which says something, don't define another attribute to say the same thing. Okay, so each attribute should manage different perspectives of your object, because otherwise you see you need to do this stuff every time you change one of them. So from this perspective, I will not define a set for is available, because you see the is available attribute is actually updating itself based on the stock value. So there is no way, it doesn't make any sense to also provide a set is available, because when you change the stock, the product is becoming available or unavailable. And the last one, I think, let's see if we missed name, description, price, available, discount, sorry, discount. And after that, we have the monthly sales. So let's cover the discount, which is an enum type. So void set discount. And here I will get a discount type. An advantage of using enums is, again, if a developer will try to call set discount with a value which is outside of the enumeration, which means if they try to call it with any value which is none of this, then they will get the compiler error. So this is another advantage of enumerations. You will always be sure that generally you will get a value from that enumeration. So I don't need to validate. Any value there will be a good value. So here I would just say this discount equals discount or new discount. Okay. So in this case, I can't get something different because the compiler will check how they call set discount. Okay. And now we reach the end of the last attribute, which is the historic data. Okay, so in this case, let's define a void set, let's say, previous month's values. Okay, so what do we need here? Again, we need an array, and in order to be sure that we are not changing this array by mistake, again, I'm using const. Let's say backup data. And if you send me an array, you need also to send me the number of values from that array, which is the equivalent of number of months that we need to store. Again, here, you should validate if you get something valuable. So for example, if someone is doing a bad joke by calling this and passing null, let's respond accordingly. So if someone will send us non-existing data, which means this is null, I can't copy that one. I can't use it. So again, let's respond with another joke. no input values, okay, no backup data or whatever. So we can't process null, okay, if you send us backup data which does not exist. If that's not the case, in the same way we did here with the description, always create a copy of the value that you receive. So when you have a pointer, when you implement the get method, always return a copy. And when you receive a pointer, always create your own array. Don't take that address, because that address is like the Trojan horse, okay, the Trojan horse. That address will come from here, from main, which means other developers have access to that address. And if you just take the address, they will change the data. The first thing that we checked was to see if we receive any data. Remember, always we validate the input in order to be sure that we can process that data. And I was telling you before the break that as we proceed, as we did with the get methods, when you have a pointer, always return a copy of that value. And when you receive a value for that pointer, always create your own copy of the input data. So let's do that. And here I will say this. It was, yeah, previous set was the name of the attribute. Monthly sold items, okay. Okay, equals new integer. So we create a new array with the same size of number of values. Okay. Again, here we generate another memory leak. Okay. And which is not okay. So don't get to this conclusion that it's okay to generate memory leaks. Okay, so it's not okay. And now let's copy the values. For int I at 0, I less than number of values, I plus plus, and let's copy them. So this means this monthly sold items at index I equals with backup data at index I. Okay, so in this way we can we create our own array and we copy the values from backup data. A common mistake when you do this is to forget to update also the number of months. Remember, we have our own variable which we use in order to know how many elements we have in this array. So if you copied this backup data into a new array, don't forget to update. So don't forget this, and let's say number of months equals number of values. Okay, so this is a common error, because here you will, if you forget to initialize that, you will keep the previous value. For example, initially you had 0 months. Now you receive some backup data, so you will still have 0 months. And when you print the info, you will see no data. Okay, so don't forget to update also the number of elements. Okay, so now we have set methods which cover all those attributes. Okay, and we know how to handle that. And in order to test them, we can test them individually here. So let's do that. You see, this is a product that has no data into it. Okay, this product here. And now let's try to set some values to it. So I will say product set name, let's say laptop. Okay. Okay, let's also set a description. Okay, gaming laptop. Okay, let's set a price. Set price. I don't know, 3500. Let's set the stock. 15 items, and so on. And now if I will call again product print info, then we should see that this product has some data finally. Okay, so debug starts without debugging, and here it is. Okay, so now I have some data: laptop, gaming laptop, price, stock. Let's add also a discount, and you see is available. And earlier we have seen that is not available, and we could do a pre-order. Okay, so when we change the stock, the is available field has been also updated. Let's set this as a product for Black Friday. So set discount type Black Friday. Okay, so build, rebuild, and debug start without debugging, and we should see also the discount. Start without debugging, and here it is. Okay, discount 50%. Okay, now this is another issue with the default constructor, because you see the developers will create default products with no data, and in order to use them to actually make a sense out of this product, they need to go through this set of set that. And again, here it's very easy to mistake, to forget to initialize an attribute. That's why this is another reason why default constructors should be kept private. Okay, you should use them, but other developers should at least give you some data when they try to build a product. Okay, so in order to do that, to make other developers create products, to allow them to create products, and also to set values, because otherwise this pattern will be used again and again, and at some point it's annoying to create an empty product and after that to call set. We need to provide constructors with different combinations of values. Remember overloading, we talked about this last week. Overloading, the concept, which it means that we can define multiple functions with the same name but with different arguments list. So those constructors will be used here instead of the default one. So let's go back into the class itself. Again, here I want to be sure I'm on the public space. You can write public, private, anytime you like. So this is not limited to only one definition. So every time you want to be sure that you are on a public area here, you can write public again. Even if we are, I think we are already in a public space. Yeah, we are here in public space. So it doesn't matter. Just write it just to be sure. So now let's define a constructor which will require the minimum amount of information. So always start with this one. So if I go back to the product description, I think that the minimum information that maybe the accounting department will ask will be this: the name of the product. The description is optional. Remember, the description is needed for the website, okay, to be presented on the online shop. So I need the name, I need the price, and the stock. So I think the minimum information that we should provide when we build the product to have a real product will be this: name, price, and stock. And now you will see the power of set methods. If you don't have the set methods, if you want to implement this constructor, what do you need to do? You need to write the same thing you wrote here. You need to write the same thing you wrote here. You need to write the same thing you wrote here. You see? And every time you write a constructor which receives name, price, or stock, or either of these, you need to write the same sequence of lines. And this is the power of set methods. Because now if you have the set methods, you validate the data here. So you split this issue of creating a product into these small functions, set functions. Now, defining the constructors is quite easy if you have the set methods, because I will just say this set name, this set price, and this set stock. Okay. And now I have this constructor. Okay. So I don't need to copy paste anything. I have the set methods which are doing the job for name, price, and stock. Now let's define another product, another constructor. Maybe someone will say, hey, I need to be able to create a product and also pass the description. Okay, we can provide that combination. So string name, const char description. Again, here, the name of these variables can be anything. Like I said in the beginning, I will use the same names because this is my habit, let's say, and maybe some of you will do it the same, or you can use new variable names like new name, new description, new price, whatever. So these names are not restricted to the names of the attributes. So now I'll do what? This set name. Again, the order in which you call this set methods, it's your own choice. So here I can say set price. Yeah, let's copy this one from here. You can copy the entire previous constructor. And now at the end, I can say this set description. Okay. So this will be a constructor which will ask for name, description, price, and stock. Can we define a constructor which will also receive the discount? Yes. So let's say I want to define another one which will also ask the discount. Discount type. Sorry, discount is not the value, it's the type, discount. Okay, so again, here I will say this set discount to discount. Okay, and can we define a constructor which will ask for all the values? Yes, we can do that. Product, let's copy this one because it's almost the same. And here I will say description, price, stock, and I will move to the next line because I will get out of the screen. So here I will say const int asterisk previous data int number of months. Okay, so now I will also receive the backup data. So here I will say this set previous month values of previous data and number of months. Okay, and any other combination. You can also define a constructor which will ask for values that maybe you need for something else. Okay, so the constructors arguments list are not limited to only variables for which you have an attribute. You can ask for other stuff if you want to use that stuff here for any other reason. Okay, so any combination, any values here are okay. Remember overloading. And remember that for overloading, the functions have the same name. And the two criteria which make the difference is the name of arguments. And if you have two functions with the same name and with the same number of arguments, they're typed from left to right. Okay, in this way, the compiler will make the distinction. Now, you see, when we have defined these constructors, we have a compiler error here and here, which means we don't have the default constructor anymore. Remember, you get this when you define the class, and if you define a constructor, you don't get this for free. And I explained you why last week, because in this way, you don't lose control. This is the way to say, hey, I will provide you these constructors. Don't use the default one because there is no default one. For today, let's keep also the default one. Okay. So if you still want to provide the default one, you can define it here. Okay. And that will be all. Now here, you can also, I don't know, change the default values that you normally get here. For example, let's say if you are using the default constructor, you want to set the name to no product name. So here I can say this name, or you can call the set method is the same thing. No product name. Okay. So in this case, we also providing the default constructor. So let's test all these constructors here. And let's see. the products. So this is the default one with the print info. Okay, I will delete the order. Okay, doesn't matter. Okay, now let's test the first constructor. So I will say product laptop, the one with the name. So I will say Asus, whatever, M300, price 3,500, and stock 25. Okay, so this is the the constructor which requires the name, price, and stock. Let's print it. Print info. Let's also test the next one with the description. So product, let's say gaming laptop. So I will say Asus, whatever, M500 gaming laptop with 16 gigabytes of RAM. Price, price, let's say 4,200, and stock 10 items. Okay, let's print this one. Gaming laptop, print info. Okay, let's test the one with also with the discount sales or promotion laptop or Black Friday laptop. Yeah, let's call this one Black Friday laptop. Okay, so I will take these values from here just to gain 1 minute. And here at the end, I will pass the discount. So this will be discount type. And here will be Black Friday. Okay, so this will be the laptop Black Friday laptop. So let's print this one. Print info. And the last one will be the one with the historic data. So let's define an array here. Previous data. I don't know, 6 items, 10 items, 20, and 12. Number of values equals 4. And now let's call the product smartphone. So here I will say, I don't know, X34, whatever. The best smartphone. Okay, price, stock, let's say 16 items, discount, minimum, and previous data will be previous data, and number of values. Okay, so this is the constructor which requires all the data. And now let's print it. Smartphone, printing. Okay, so if I will run this, debug start without debugging. This is what we will see. So I have the M300, no available description, price, stock, discount is available. This one is the one with also description, price, stock, discount is available. This is the Black Friday laptop. Okay, discount 50%. And this is the last one, which also has previous data. Okay, so now finally I can see here previous sold items 6, 10, 20, 12. Okay, so in this way we covered many different combinations of values that we can pass to the constructor, so we can actually build the products with data. And you see, instead of writing this line and after that a lot of lines with set methods, It's much more efficient to write only one line, and by that you create a product with data. And that's why I say that default constructors should be kept private. You can use them, but other developers, they need to use this approach, because in this way you eliminate the risk that you will have products without data or without minimum data in memory, like name, price, and stock. Okay, your colleagues asked me in the earlier laboratory, how can we convert an enum into a string? So how can I see Black Friday, for example? Or how can I convert, if I need to read, how can I convert a number? For example, I read 50, and how do I convert that to a discount type, which is Black Friday? Okay, and we did some methods here which will show you how to do that. So if you are interested in seeing that, you can check your colleagues' laboratory, which is already on GitHub. Okay, I did a similar example with them, but they asked me how can we do also that part, and we also covered that. Okay, so with this example, I think it should be clear to anyone the way we handle encapsulation, the way we provide the public interface, and the way we build objects. And this is very important, because without this, we can't actually use everything which will follow. So creating objects and managing access to their data is the first thing that we need to know. And with this example, let's say we implemented all the stuff that we covered in the last 2 weeks courses. So tomorrow we continue the discussion, and we cover memory leaks, destructor, copy constructor, and the shallow copy versus deep copy mechanism. And in 2 weeks, we dive into operators, overloading operators. And that will be, let's say, the moment after which we will take the laboratory test. Okay, so if you have any